Number 10. Will Carroll. Will Carroll, the drummer of the band Death Angel, caught COVID-19 at the end of his band's European tour. It was a long, hard battle, and thankfully, Carroll was able to come back from it, but the battle along the way may have included an encounter with Satan himself. The virus put him in a critical state, which involved Carroll lying unconscious in his hospital bed for 12 days straight. In an interview with San Francisco Chronicle though, Will revealed that those 12 days were spent in a peaceful dream state. In his dreams, or I would call them nightmares, the devil would punish him repeatedly for the sin of sloth. The devil would apparently turn him into a bulbous-like creature and make him puke blood until his heart gave out. These were the dreams he was having over and over again. Since recovering from the disease, needless to say, Carroll has changed his lifestyle habits. For more reason than this one, it appears recovering from this awful virus we all hate definitely felt like returning from hell. Maybe the virus is from there too. Wouldn't be surprised, to be honest.
At number 9 we have Anna Haining Bates. Born in the Canadian province of Nova Scotia back in August of 1846, Anna was just like every other child until she started a bit of a growth spurt. A growth spurt that never ended. By age 5 she was already 4 feet 8 inches, that's 142 centimeters, and weighed over 100 pounds, that's over 45 kilograms. Finally at age 22 she came in at 7 feet 6 inches, that's 229 centimeters, and weighed 350 pounds, which is 159 kilograms. Bates went into show business around the age of 16 and would often be shown opposite to a little person to show the incredible difference in size. But being that tall has its disadvantages. In July of 1865, Anna almost burned to death during a fire at the famous P.T. Barnum Museum. The stairs were engulfed in flames and she was too tall to jump out the window. Luckily for her, she was saved by other museum employees who broke through walls to escort her out and was then assisted with a crane. That's crazy. It's hard enough sometimes getting emergency crews to the scene, let alone a crane. But hey, I'm guessing they didn't have the same kind of Toronto traffic as we do nowadays. Anna then later went on to marry another giant by the name of Martin Van Buren, aka the Kentucky Giant, who was 7 feet 3 inches tall. She later got pregnant with 2 children, but they both tragically died at birth. Anna herself later died in 1888 at the age of 41.
Number 8. Rose La Tulip. It appears that the devil and the violin kind of go hand in hand. The story of Rose La Tulip is a famous French-Canadian story and one of my absolute favorites. The woman who shared this story with me swears it was true, and I can't help but believe it either. Rose begged her father to host a dance on the eve of Lent, and he agreed, but with one condition, that at midnight the dancing had to stop. Dancing wasn't allowed during Lent, so if they continued, they would be sinning. Rose agreed, and everyone came to join on the night, and Rose danced with anyone who would, even with other men, though she was engaged. Then at 11 p.m. a knock came at the door, and the priest opened it to reveal a dazzlingly handsome stranger, and Rose fell hard. The priest welcomed him and requested that he take off his hat, shoes, and jacket, all of which the man refused, saying he wasn't staying long. He immediately swept Rose in a dance and asked no one else for the remainder of the evening. As soon as midnight hit, the dancing stopped, but the man whispered in her ear, "Just one last dance, my Rose." With struggles she resisted, but suddenly her feet, bewitched it seemed, began dancing without her. The man then kissed her, and the spark from their kiss set the house ablaze. The next morning Rose was found mumbling around the ashes, now mysteriously an old woman, the devil having taken part of her soul with him. I know, that sounds like a legend, but like, thanks for indulging me because I really love that story and I want an opportunity to tell it, so here it is. Other versions say that she actually got taken back to hell with him, and another is that her mother came and saved her. A whole bunch of stuff, but I think that one's my favorite. Okay, number 7. Richard Cabell. Richard Cabell might as well have been the devil himself. A squire at Brooke Manor in Devon, England in the 1600s, he was known as a monstrously cruel man. He abused his wife, and one night she escaped him with him hot on her heels. He killed her and her faithful dog, but little did the man know that that dog would haunt him for the rest of his days, and there would be many. At least that's what Cabell thought. Cabell had made a deal with the devil to live forever, but mysteriously Cabell passed away in 1677. But it appears the devil did give him everlasting life, as a spirit walking the moors at night, forever being chased by a herd of hounds. The locals even put iron bars around his tomb because there were so many sightings of him wandering around the moors. Instead, now, a red glow occasionally emits from his resting place, and the howls of demons are said to gather, waiting to claim his soul for their master. Number 6. Saint Dunstan. Saint Dunstan was a saint who lived in 900s, and for some reason the devil loved to visit him. He was a talented metalsmith, and one day an old man requested that he make a chalice for him. Dunstan agreed, but when he looked back up at the old man, he had shifted into a woman and then very suddenly a boy. Immediately he knew it was the devil, but fearing his wrath, concealed his distress and crafted the chalice. Subtly though, he put his blacksmith tongs in the fire, and quick as he could he thrust the tongs onto Satan's nose and cast him from the cell. That wouldn't be the last time he saw the devil though. Dunstan would face him once again and attack the devil by hammering into his hoof, and only agreed to remove it if the devil agreed never to cross a threshold where a horseshoe hung. And that's why today horseshoes are considered good luck, so take a lesson from that. Number 5, a boy named Scott. An article written by Richard J. Bonifant recounts several near-death experiences in order to try and see similarities. Some usually describe a light or a tunnel, but after a little boy named Scott got into an accident, he may have met something much darker. On June 10th, 1995, Scott and his family were enjoying getting ice cream from the ice cream truck, as you do, but Scott was so excited he ran out from behind the truck and he got hit by another motorist. He was almost declared dead, but 8 hours later, thankfully, he awoke in intensive care. The weirdest part was that he described in perfect detail what had happened to him as if he was watching from across the street. He knew every single detail. It was really freaky. Even recalled trying to give his dad a hug, but passing right through him. The scariest thing though was who he ended up meeting. He suddenly faced a dark vortex and felt himself being drawn into it by the haunting, putrid image of the devil. Scott said he looked like a man made of rotting flesh, and he tried to grab Scott, but he was whisked away into a tunnel of light, so it was kind of like the devil's trying to steal him from God. I'm glad things ended well for the little boy, getting to be with his family again, but still, not something anyone wants to see in the afterlife. Number 4, Dr. Paul Thigpen.
All of a sudden I felt as if the darkness had filled my whole body and that there was maybe a little part of it that was still me.
That was a clip of an interview with Dr. Paul Thigpen, who despite being raised under a Christian household became an atheist before he was even 12 years old. That is until one day he was hanging with his friends when he was around 17 by the water in the front seat of a car. All 3 of them were squished in, and a palpable darkness began pressing into the top of his head, all the way to the bottom of his toes. He said it took over the majority of his body, and though he'd become an atheist, he didn't drink or do drugs, so we know this isn't a psychedelic experience, but his body suddenly felt like a kind of superhuman strength taking over him. A voice in his head whispered, "I'm throwing you into the water." To this day, Dr. Paul can't swim, and his body started moving across his friend's seat to leave the car. He knew he was going to die. Then he heard another voice that said, "Focus on the cross." He suddenly remembered the cross his girlfriend gave him, so he grabbed it, and meanwhile his friends were like freaking out. After holding the cross for a while, he said the darkness subsided, and when he told his friend what had happened, he said, "That's strange. The same thing happened to my girlfriend." He sought counsel from another friend who without a doubt said that he had been visited by the devil. Later he discovered that his girlfriend's friend was a witch, and that kind of pointed all the arrows in that direction, so who knows. Was it a demon or in fact the devil? Either way, something changed his mind. Watch the rest of the interview and decide for yourself. Number 3, the man with the glowing eyes. Reddit user Dabby_U_69 had an experience as a kid that I don't think anyone could be the same after. They grew up in a pagan household, which apparently meant you saw a lot of weird stuff. But one day, on a Tuesday in the afternoon, she was playing with the daughter of a family friend who they called Jay, just outside as you do. So they're just playing, and then all of a sudden Jay just stops dead in her tracks and points behind her. She froze and then turned around slowly to see, and I quote, "a tall shadow man about 6-7 feet tall in a trench coat and hat. The scariest thing about him was his eyes. Oh God, his eyes. Huge, red, and glowing circles, but its actual eyes were small, bloodshot, and his pupils were tiny. The man reportedly tried to strangle them, but they bolted too quick for the house. Once they told their moms, they in turn freaked out because apparently at the same time the man appeared, the TV had turned long static. They brought in a psychic who said, 'My love, the devil is here and he wants to hurt you. He was sent by someone, but we don't know who.' The woman then gave a crystal bottle filled with sage and lavender along with something else to ward him off, and apparently the bottle is running out. So I hope she's okay." Number 2, Father Gabriel Amorth. Father Gabriel Amorth was the official exorcist for the Diocese of Rome and claimed to have performed 60,000 exorcisms before he died in 2016. But one day in 1997 he encountered a spirit he never thought he'd see. A slim young peasant man was escorted to a small room where Father Amorth waited him. Immediately he knew something was wrong. He requested the help of Jesus, and as soon as he did, the man began to spit and curse in English, which wasn't a language the man was known known to speak. But then, the man was seething with anger and drool dripped from his mouth as he stared down the father. He tried to attack him, but the exorcist held him back with prayers, demanding the demon reveal its name. He called out, "Unclean spirit, whoever you are and all your companions who possess this servant of God, I command you, tell me your name, the day and the hour of your damnation." The man snarled, and what came out next paralyzed him. Dripping evil, the man said, "I am Lucifer." He continued fighting the devil with prayer, and the windows formed ice crystals as he did so. The man also bent backwards for 25 minutes, howling at him, then began hovering at 3 feet in the air. Was it him? We don't know! We just don't know, but it certainly sounds like it. Number 1, last but not least, we kind of have to talk about this because I think a bunch of people saw the devil here. Castle Houska is one of the creepiest places in the world, as it was specifically built to keep the devil inside. Legend says that the castle was built over a gateway to hell. From afar, it looks like a typical old castle until you get closer. The castle wasn't built to be lived in, as evident by the fake windows and doors. Though there is a way inside, people don't recommend you step foot in there. In 878 AD, winged beasts and half-human creatures spilled from the gateway and terrorized the people in the village. Somehow they held them off long enough to build the place, but they were still curious. When construction first began, prisoners in the village would be offered a pardon if they agreed to be lowered by rope into the hole. The first man to attempt it is said to have met the devil himself while he was down there. He was tied up and slowly lowered. After a few moments in the darkness, the man began screaming and begged to be pulled up. By the time they hauled him up, he looked as though he aged 30 years. His hair was white, his skin creased and speckled. They tried to discover what he had seen, but the man was incoherent and was later put into an insane asylum before dying 2 days later.
Coming in at number 10, we have Truck On. In May 2018, a fire chief in East Jordan claimed that a security camera took this image of an angel flying over his truck. Glenn Thorman said that CCTV caught an angel flying over his vehicle and then disappeared out of frame. He said, "That's an angel," and I was just blown away. The Jordan River's Facebook page shared the image and said, "These photos have not been altered in any way." The second photo, the security camera also shot because the angel was moving away. The camera is designed to photograph anything in motion or unusual. Lots of tears today when they opened the security on their camera. Wow. Some skeptics are saying it's a moth nearer to the camera and that the picture lacks depth perception, but others are straight up convinced it's an angel.
In our number 9 spot, we have the Stargazer. A young man by the name of Harry lived in the country on a farm and was fascinated by the stars. He was given a telescope for Christmas one year, and he would look up at the stars and study them every night. One night, he spotted something in the sky like nothing he had ever seen before. It was a triangle, metal-looking object flying in the sky. He thought that it had to be a UFO. He ran inside to call his friend and tell him about it, and after he got off the telephone, he heard a knock on his door. He opened it to see 3 men dressed in black from head to toe. There was something a bit weird about them though. They all kind of looked alike, and their noses were almost non-existent. Before Harry could speak, they were telling him to forget what he had seen and never speak of it again. They also subtly threatened his family and his future if he spoke about it. Terrified, he vowed not to. He eventually decided to share his story online because technically he wouldn't be speaking about it. Upon years of reflection, Harry believes that he met some kind of alien.
Coming into number 8, we have Angels in Mecca. A YouTube video was uploaded to the video sharing site in August 2010. Now, it was said to have been shot in Mecca in 2008. Mecca, of course, is a holy desert valley in Saudi Arabia, sacred to those of the Islamic faith. So this video is pretty blurry, but such was life in 2008. I have to admit, something strange is happening here. Perhaps it's an angel visiting one of the holiest spots on Earth, or maybe it's a lens flare. You decide. Coming into number 7, we have Dark Angel or Dementor. Some people in Kitwe in Zambia were convinced that they had seen a dark angel, or an angel of death perhaps, looking over the Mccuba Mall. The dark humanoid figure appeared in the clouds with seemingly no explanation. The apparition was 100 meters long and very much looked like a Harry Potter Dementor. Dementors, of course, administer kisses of death and suck out souls, so Not great. People had mixed reactions to the figure in the clouds. Some people thought it was an angel of some kind or some kind of embodiment of God, so they started worshipping it. Others were terrified and they ran away in fear. Apparently the mystery cloud hung around for around half an hour and then it disappeared. How strange. Coming into number 6, we have a guardian angel. A lot of people talk about guardian angels, benevolent forces that watch over them and protect them from harm. This is a lovely idea, but is there any proof that such a thing exists? Well, this CCTV footage from a road in China seems to offer a shred of proof. A guy on a motorbike is about to be obliterated by an oncoming truck when his guardian angel flies in at super speed and rescues him right in the nick of time. Now this does leave him very confused. He's baffled, but he's alive. So have a look at this footage and let me know what you think for yourself. The video was uploaded in September 2012 and has been watched over 11 million times. Is this proof of a higher force? Well, it turns out that actually this is a hoax. It's a viral marketing campaign for a Chinese game called Dragon Totem Girl. Makes me kinda sad. Speaking of guardian angels, it seems one showed up at a hospital at number 5. I found this image alongside the story of Chelsea Banton. Chelsea was 14 when she nearly died of pneumonia. Now her illness had reached the point where doctors recommended switching off her life support. Her mother made the unthinkable decision to follow the doctor's advice. Now it was thought that Chelsea would quickly die, but she survived the night and then began to make a miraculous recovery. One of the nurses had reported a man standing by Chelsea's door, and when her mother seemed totally baffled by it, they watched over the CCTV footage. This is what they saw. Whether or not it's just a patch of light from a particularly sunny window, or whether what you're seeing is actually the figure of an angel, one thing's for sure, what happened to Chelsea was an absolute miracle. Coming into number 4, we have the Stairway to Heaven. In July 2018, footage from Tuscaloosa, Alabama was uploaded to the internet. The video was shot on a stormy day and the camera captures the dark clouds, only there's something going on in those clouds. If you look closely, you can see what looks like two people walking through them. Now they don't appear to have wings, but could these be angels anyway? It seems that the footage was shot as part of a live stream and only later were the figures spotted. On YouTube, the Miraculous video has been viewed 2.2 million times. Now Alabama is a pretty religious place and it seemed to have many people locally as well as further spread across the world totally convinced of heavenly activity. There's something similar happening in Ghana at number 3. A Ghanaian news channel reported on a strange sighting in Dunstan, Ghana. The news presenter shares the video, so maybe angels can choose to have wings when they want, and maybe sometimes vampires can't go into the sun, but then maybe sometimes they glitter like Edward Cullen. See what I'm saying? Coming in at number 2, we have fairies or tiny angels. Anyone watching who's roughly my age or a few years older from the UK, do you remember Goldie Looking Jane? Because I certainly do. I really enjoyed them as a teen, and you know what, who doesn't love a bit of Welsh rap at the best of times? You might be wondering what they're up to now. Well, let me tell you, spotting fairies in the garden, that's what. So John Rutledge, a member of Goldie Looking Jane, was out having a lovely walk with his dog in Newbridge, Wales, when he decided to take some snaps of the beautiful sunny summer's day. Now, if the sun is shining in the UK, especially Wales, you are going to want to capture that on camera. It turns out that John got more than he bargained for when he looked at his film. While he surveyed his pictures after his walk, he realised that he had actually captured what looked like 7 tiny winged humanoids. Now, are these little angels or are they fairies? Or are fairies just tiny angels anyway? The pop star said that ever since childhood he wanted to witness a paranormal event. He said, "The last thing I expected was a winged entity in a wood in South Wales, but there it is, smack bang in your face. It's solid evidence." Imagine him saying that in his Welsh accent. Solid. On closer inspection, the picture is seemingly legit. It does look like tiny winged people. Finally, coming into number 1, this honestly did have me convinced. We have the Russian landing. In 2016, on a live news broadcast in Russia, a bright light interrupted the host. Now, I don't know what she's saying, but maybe our Russian audience will know. The presenter seems totally shocked. Her reaction seems pretty genuine. What else could this be? We don't see wings or anything, it's just a ball of light, but it's really strange, and again, her reaction speaks volumes. Was this an actual angel caught on camera?
Starting off this countdown, we have the infamous Bigfoot.
This footage of Bigfoot is the one that started this whole Bigfoot craze. If you Google images of Bigfoot, this is surely the one to pop up. So back in 1967, two men were creating a short film in Northern California when they ended up capturing footage of Bigfoot. In the footage we see him walk by a wooded area. Over the years, a number of people have attempted to debunk this footage, but none have been successful. Is it possible for it to be someone in a gorilla suit? Well, at the time this footage came out, the movie Beneath the Planet of the Apes also came out. If you look at the ape costumes used in that movie and compare it to the Bigfoot video, Bigfoot looks more realistic. People claim you can actually see the creature's muscles and such. How could someone make a costume way above its time? It's not possible. Meaning, this could be evidence of a real Bigfoot.
Coming in at number 9 is Dobby. Now I know this footage has been everywhere since it went viral in the last 2 weeks or so, but I too had to add to the hype and mention it as well. So a video was posted onto Facebook by a woman named Vivian Gomez, and the footage is basically from her security camera outside her home, which she says she has not altered in any way, shape or form. The video was taken during the night, and in it you see a tiny, scrawny white figure with big floppy ears and wobbly legs walking through her driveway, and mid-video it sort of does the chicken dance with its arms. It just kind of looks like this. It's very strange. And yes, I think we've all pretty much agreed unanimously the thing looks exactly like a house elf from Harry Potter, and if that was in fact Dobby being a free elf, then I fully support whatever it was he was doing. But that also makes me really sad, because if house elves are just roaming about, then I'm clearly just a bloody muggle, and that just sucks.
Moving on at number 8, we have Allegheny National Forest. In 2007, hunter Rick Jacobs decided to mount a wildlife camera to a tree in Allegheny National Forest, Pennsylvania. The camera worked on a motion sensor and would take photos when triggered. He had hopes of capturing photos of bears, deers, and other wildlife. Little did he know that he was about to capture evidence of Bigfoot. So on September 16th, 2007, upon reviewing the photos on the camera, he discovered a creepy picture of what appears to be Bigfoot. However, skeptics believe that it's an image of a sick bear. But the way that it's hunched over with its back leg extended makes it look like Bigfoot. In our 7th spot, we have Marble Mountain Bigfoot. If you are a Bigfoot enthusiast, then this is another well-known sighting to you. In June of 2001, a group of teens and a leader, part of a youth group called Campus Life, were camping at Marble Mountain. The group ended up finding a weird den made out of twigs and large branches. Then shortly after, the leader, Jim Mills, noticed a weird-looking creature moving nearby. He filmed it for 7 minutes. To this day, this is the longest video footage of an alleged Bigfoot sighting. Experts have analyzed the footage and have agreed that it's not a human, and that the creature is 9 feet tall. When the Bigfoot noticed the group of people watching it, it began jumping up and down, screaming, and then it pushes a tree. It was just probably trying to scare off the onlookers. Making our way down the list at number 6, we have Lake James Bigfoot. Back in late 2019, a man named John Bruner and 3 other men went on a boat late at night scouting an area on Lake James. Apparently that night fishermen had seen something watching them from the shore, so these folks went out to investigate. That's when they started to hear weird noises coming from the cove. They turned off the boat's motor and used their night vision cameras to scope out the area. That's when they saw Bigfoot and got 121 pictures of it. The creature was estimated to be around 7.5 feet tall. At one point they claimed that the creature was just standing, swaying back and forth while watching them. After 5 minutes, the creature walked away. But again, like all photos of Bigfoot, these photos are terribly blurry. All 121 of them. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with webcam Bigfoot. Bigfoot just keeps blowing its cover. Now it seems like he doesn't care if he gets caught. Also, let me say that Washington State is notorious for Bigfoot sightings. There have been tons of sightings over the years, so Bigfoot must have a home somewhere around there. Anyways, this time Bigfoot was caught on the Department of Transportation's webcam. The webcam was located on Sherman Pass on State Route 20. It caught Bigfoot crossing a mountain pass. Then you see it lurking behind some trees by the road. Whatever it is, it looks massive and hairy, just like Bigfoot. fourth spot, we have the Russian Bigfoot. Bigfoot is said to mainly live in Canada and in areas of the US, but this video may prove that Russia is also home to Bigfoots. So this footage was shot back in 2016 and features Bigfoot chasing a car. In this video you can see a black blob appear in the distance, only to then start coming closer and closer to the car filming it. I mean, the creature moves pretty fast since it manages to catch up with the car, which keeps driving away from the creature and then stopping to get more footage of it. At one point in the video, the girls are yelling to close the window and can be heard saying, "He's coming, he's running." Apparently, the creature actually jumped onto the car and broke the glass, but obviously they were not recording when that happened. So yeah. Apparently, Bigfoot in Russia are super aggressive. Also, is the plural of Bigfoot big feet or Bigfoots? I don't know. Big feet. In our third spot, we have the Curious Children. In January of 2013, 3 Russian children were out playing in the snow when they stumbled upon Bigfoot. This case was actually featured on an episode of National Geographic. So the kids were out following a pair of footprints to the edge of a frozen lake. Along the way, they are laughing and joking around. That's when they see a tall, dark, hairy figure in the distance. When the creature spots them, it turns and runs away super fast. The kids get scared and run away as well. They described to National Geographic that the creature was tall and covered in hair, except it had no hair on its face. The children and their parents all believe that they spotted a real-life Bigfoot. Coming in at number 2, we have the game camera, another Bigfoot sighting in Washington state. In attempts to catch a supposed Bigfoot that had been lurking around the area, they set up a game camera hidden in a fake rock. They did this as a way to trick Bigfoot. The camera and rock were set up in a man's yard, who claimed he saw Bigfoot lurking there 9 months earlier. Well, they did capture something alright. If you look at the photo, it just kinda looks like a blurry mess, not gonna lie. But they believe that it shows an eye with wrinkles above it, part of a nose bridge, part of another eye, and a forehead. In fact, this image matches the eyewitness drawing of the creature. The photo from the game camera was placed on top of the drawing, and it lined up almost perfectly. Pretty creepy if you ask me. And in our number 1 spot, we have 911 Bigfoot. This next sighting is so creepy. A man calls 911 saying that a tall, dark figure is in his yard. In fact, the full actual call is online, available to be listened to. So the call occurred in Washington state, aka Bigfoot Central, back in 1996. The man on the phone tells the operator that someone or something is crawling in his yard. He says that his sensor light came on and he saw something run across the yard. When the operator asks him to describe it, he says that it's a good-sized man or something that looks like a man. Then he says that the creature is about 6'8" and is really big. He also tells her that the night before his dog was killed in his yard. Then out of nowhere he starts panicking, telling the operator to send someone immediately. A week later, the sheriff's office got a picture of what seems to be Bigfoot lurking in his neighbor's yard.
911, what are you reporting? With someone or something crawling around out here. Did you see what person or an animal or? I can't tell. All I know is my sensor light came on and I just happened to glimpse and see this thing running across the yard.
In our number 10 spot, we have UFO spotting in Washington. 2 harbor patrolmen in the Washington state named Harold H. Dahl and Fred L. Chrisman spotted a UFO over the water of Puget Sound, Washington. It was 1947, and after this incident, they were approached by a man dressed in black that forcefully advised them to not discuss the incident further. This was one of the first sightings of the Men in Black. The men were described as being extremely mysterious, never looking the patrolman in the eyes. Ooh, probably to cover up their reptile eyes, am I right?
Coming into number 9, we have the Texan experience. Danny Ferrero was driving in Texas in July 2018 when he saw something beautiful in the sky. He stopped to take a picture of his view down Highway 105 and then shared the image of the sun setting in the clouds on Facebook. The beams of light through the clouds very much looked like an angel spreading their wings, and the good people of Facebook thought so too. The image was shared on the social media platform 12,000 times. Ferrero said that the sighting came at the right time. He'd been having some family issues. He said, "God can speak to us in many different ways, and for that I'm thankful."
In our number 8 spot, we have the President's Men in Black. In 2012, it was discovered that President Obama of the USA had a few men in black working for him that could have very well been from another world. Footage was discovered of his security at the US-Israel Policy Conference, and they were looking rather alien-like. From the front, completely normal. From the back, we see a bald man with no ears and a pointy chin. His nose looks short and rounded, and his eyes appear to be dark and sunken in. Do you think there were possibly alien men in black guards guarding the president that day? It's definitely possible. In our number 7 spot, we have the Fire Watch sighting. A man named Gabe was working a shift at a fire watch tower in the woods when he saw a black SUV pull up in the wee hours of the morning. A few minutes later, the sound of a firearm went off. The next thing he knew, there was a knock on his tower and 2 large men in black were waiting behind the door. He opened the door and they immediately questioned him, asking him to reveal what he saw. He said he saw nothing, and after a moment they appeared to believe him. They told him to never speak of this experience to anyone. Looking back, he definitely thinks he met one of the men in black. Originally, he chalked these men up to some kind of gang, but now he definitely thinks that those 2 men were the men in black. In our number 6 spot, we have the UFO researcher. In 1976, Dr. Herbert Hopkins, who is a UFO researcher, got a call from someone who claimed to be a rep from a New Jersey UFO organization. The man asked if Hopkins was alone and if Hopkins would be willing to share his research. Hopkins said sure and began sharing with him. Once he hung up the phone, a man was at his doorstep. He described the man as being bald, without eyebrows, wearing a neatly tailored black suit. He had red lips and pale white skin. The man took out a coin and told Hopkins to watch it. It started to develop a silver color instead of copper, and then the silver became bluish and the penny was getting quite fuzzy, out of focus, blurred, and then it was simply gone. Apparently after this incident, he was instructed to destroy all of his research. In our number 5 spot, we have the Dan Aykroyd story. This story is wild to me because I have literally had the thought, why doesn't the dad from Crossroads barely work anymore? Did Hollywood cast him out? I've literally just thought about this last week. Well, that honestly might be the case, and I certainly wonder about that after hearing about how he shared this story with people online. So 20 years ago, in 2002, 20 years ago, wow, Dan was creating a series called Out There for the Sci-Fi Channel, and it talked about UFOs, alien abductions, crop circles, and all kinds of extraterrestrial research. One day he was in the middle of doing some interviews when he went outside between 42nd and 8th Street in New York for a break, and he went on a phone call with Britney Spears, funny enough, talking to him about their new movie, when he looked out at the street and saw a long black SUV and 2 guys in black outside of it. One was very tall and they were just glaring at him. He turned away for a second, and when he looked back, they were gone. He has gone on record to say that he knows what he saw, and there was absolutely no way that they could have turned on that street because he would have seen them. They disappeared as if they had some kind of cloaking device. He found out that his show was canceled later that day. In our number 4 spot, we have the Niagara Hotel. A manager of a hotel in Niagara by the name of Sovar and his security guard reported seeing a triangular UFO outside their building. A group called the Aerial Phenomena Investigations Team reported the incident with the 2 men's consent. A few weeks later, two tall men in black suits came into the hotel and spoke with Sovar and the security guard. They freaked out the employees allegedly as they had identical faces, no eyebrows or eyelashes, and were very pale. These two men were caught on surveillance for the hotel, and that footage definitely makes me feel very nervous. A small part of me wants to go to Niagara and ask every hotel about this incident and just, find out which hotel it is. In our number 3 spot, we have the library. Apparently, a professor by the name of Peter Rojewitz claimed that he once was reading a UFO book in the library when all of a sudden a strange pale man wearing all black sat down next to him. The man suddenly began talking to the professor and asked him questions about flying saucers and his opinion on them. Peter said that he wasn't super interested in them. The man became very agitated by this. He eventually left, and the professor felt super uncomfortable. Upon reflection, he is sure that he met a man in black official. In our number 2 spot, we have the disc. A man by the name of Paul Miller experienced something so crazy one day when he was coming home from a hunting trip. He looked up and saw a luminous disc in the sky. The disc landed in a field and 2 humanoids left the craft. Paul had a weapon on him, and so he fired at the beings as he ran away, and he believes that he managed to hurt one of them. As he was running away from the scene, in a blink of a moment he realized that he had lost time. It was suddenly 3 hours later than when he first saw the aircraft. He shrugged it off and went back to work as normal the next day. But when he got to work, 3 men in black suits approached him. He was informed that they had his file. He hadn't even told anyone about what he experienced, but these men said they knew all about it. They told him that it was best he forget about what happened. Yikes. In our number 1 spot, we have the photograph. A man by the name of Jim Templeton took a nice photo of his daughter holding some flowers, and when he got it developed, he discovered something else in the photo that was not there when he took it. A sort of white spaceman. How could this be? He took it to Kodak and they authenticated it, and from there, his story went public. Not too long after, he was approached by 2 government agents that called themselves Number 9 and Number 10. They demanded to see the site of where the photo was taken, and when they discovered that Templeton didn't actually see the spaceman in person, that he just showed up in the photograph, they got very angry and walked away. Not long after that, Templeton was contacted by 2 employees at a missile launch pad that was located near the site where the photo was taken, and these men claimed that they had seen 2 figures that resembled the men in the photo. Ooh, so weird. Props an alien spaceman. What a wild story.
Starting us off at number 10 is the Globster. So back in May of last year, a creature dubbed the Globster washed up on a beach in the Philippines. Now in the video of the creature, it seems to be a 6-meter long thing covered in whitish grayish hair. Honestly, even in pictures of the Globster, I can't identify where the head of this thing is and where the back is. It's just the same, I just don't know. It's just a giant hairy carcass that people speculated was an undiscovered monster from the deepest parts of the ocean. Many locals were worried by the creature, saying the arrival of something so unusual can only be a bad sign and that an earthquake may be on the way. Some even reached further and said it was a really old whale carcass, but I've seen many whale carcasses online and they never have fur or hair on them, and that much of it, no matter what stage of decay I've seen them in, but I'm no expert so I could totally be wrong. Either way, the Globster remains a complete mystery.
Coming in at number 9, we have Provo Canyon Bigfoot. In October of 2012, a group of siblings were hiking in Provo Canyon when they spotted something in the woods and began filming it. Earlier on their hike, they saw some deer and wanted to get a closer look at them, so they headed up in the direction of the deer. That's when they spotted this creature. At first they thought it was a bear, but were horrified when the creature stood up on its 2 legs. They got frightened and ran out of the area. To this day, they don't know exactly what it is that they saw, but they managed to capture it on tape.
Yeah, we probably should be too close to it, huh? Oh, cool though. Let's go.
At number 8 we have the Montauk Monster, and that's not even a clickbaity title I made up, that's actually what the news ended up calling it. So back in July of 2008 in New York, a creature was found washed up on the beach, and it freaked the hell out of everyone because no one had any idea what it actually was. Looking at it, honestly, it was this hairless creature whose skin sort of resembled baked chicken to me. The mouth was also strange, the upper lip was kind of shaped like a beak, and it had solid teeth. It also has a tail, so there's that, but it seriously just doesn't look like an animal you would recognize. The Independent newspaper speculated the creature was some mutant experiment that might have escaped from the Plum Island Disease Center nearby. Others took a jab at guessing what it was too, with things like a raccoon, but the proportions just weren't right. A sea turtle, but it had no shell, and turtle shells are fused with the spine, so that wasn't possible either. And people even guessed it was a dog of some kind, but the feet don't match a dog's. So we still don't really know what the Montauk Monster is, and the best guess we have from a paleozoologist is that it's a raccoon with its upper jaw missing. Either way, the carcass was taken somewhere undisclosed by a random guy, so we don't even know where it is anymore. Filling our number 7 slot is the pseudo Loch Ness Monster. I feel like some kind of Loch Ness-esque monster always ends up on lists like this, but anyway, in March of last year, Jeff Warren and his son found what they thought was the Loch Ness Monster. They were walking along the beach at Wolf Island National Wildlife Refuge in Georgia when they happened upon the creature. Honestly, I mean to give them credit, the creature does look exactly how the Loch Ness Monster has been depicted in the past. You know, long neck and tail, the 2 arm fins, and the sort of fatter body. Except the creature in the video is a lot smaller than you'd expect the Scottish Loch Ness Monster to be. Like, if that one is daddy, this one is like a mini junior in comparison. I don't know what that analogy was or how I made that comparison, but I'm sure you guys get it. The creature also had a bit of its internal organs spilling out of its abdomen area, so not in the best shape, I'm not gonna lie. Marine scientists speculated it was a deep sea shark, but there appeared to be no gill slit, so that was ruled out as well. Now at number 6 is Slender Man. Terrifying game, by the way, when you're playing it in high school like I was. Why do we just get pulled towards scary things? It's literally just gonna be the end of me, I swear. I'm gonna be the end of me by just wanting scary things. Anyway, either way, back in Jan of 2017, Redditor JHood3119 said his friend who lived in upstate New York installed a security camera at his house. A few nights later, his dog had been barking all night the night before for no reason, and he just wanted to, make sure everything was all good, so he went through the footage. In front of his house in the footage, you can see a very tall, very skinny creature with glowing yellow eyes hurrying on 2 legs across the snow and then disappearing into thin air. Like, the camera was still panned onto the area, but it just full on disappeared. The dog is even in the camera footage, and you can see it turning its head and following this creature's trajectory before it disappears. The dude's neighbor is even out searching his yard with a flashlight, but they don't see the creature either. Which, I mean, I get because it disappears within seconds, but still, that's crazy. Coming in at number 5 is the ET jellyfish. So a submarine actually got this creature on tape 4,000 feet below the surface, and I kid you not, all I can say is it looks like a very high-tech black jellyfish. And now on the dome part of its body, it has a bunch of stripes coming down it that light up multicolored and kind of ebb and flow with how the creature moves. The bottom part of it looks like a black cloth, but the weirdest part was it looked like it was actually doing tricks for the submarine camera and trying to impress it almost. Which, I mean, I totally understand, we all have to seize our 15 seconds of fame wisely, so you do you, boo. But people have speculated this creature looks so high tech it could be extraterrestrial. What do you guys think? At number 4 is the Spaghetti Monster. Sounds like a very cute children's cookbook or something, but it's really not. It never is. Now this one requires a bit of backstory. Back in 2005, a physics graduate called Bobby Henderson actually started a church called the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster. He did that to protest the idea of intelligent design, which is basically a theory that says you can explain the creation of life through smart arguments rather than actual natural occurrences. So he disagrees with that statement. But funnily enough, this fictitious parody spaghetti monster was found in real life living 4,000 feet deep in the Atlantic Ocean off the coast of Angola. A remote control device took the footage of the creature, which looks whitish or yellowish in color and just has a bunch of tentacles coming out of it, all of different lengths and thicknesses. The body of it looked like what our small intestines would look like if they were an animal, if you can imagine that. And experts who saw the footage said it could be a jellyfish of sorts, but I don't remember the last time jellyfish looked like that. Filling our number 3 slot is the horned sea devil. Now back in August of 2013, a seemingly never before seen horned sea devil was found on the beach of Villaricos in Spain. I don't even know how to begin to describe this creature to you. It looks like a long white Chinese dragon from the sea. The head of the creature had 2 yellow horns coming out and its body was around 4 meters long, ending in a sort of serpent looking tail, but a bit larger. Samples were taken from the carcass to be tested by members of the Marine Fauna Protection Society, but even they had no idea what it could possibly be. Like, even the freaking experts don't know what it is, so what am I meant to tell you at this point? Some even speculated it was an oarfish, others said it was a sea dragon or water dinosaur of kinds. Everything inconclusive. Don't ask me about it, I don't know. Now at number 2 is the melting landmass, and honestly I titled this creature that because that's literally exactly what it looks like. Back in 2017, a gigantic floating carcass was found on the shore of the island of Seram in Indonesia. The fisherman who discovered the creature said it was so big he initially thought he had found a boat stranded in shallow water. When he got closer he figured it was a 50-foot long dead creature that he couldn't pinpoint. The creature was different colors, parts were white, some were brown, others were moldy yellow, and it honestly looked like the flesh of this creature was just melting off its body. To make matters worse, blood was also leaking from the animal and making most of the coastline bright red, but that didn't stop the locals from getting in there to figure out what the hell it was. Now the chief scientist at the Ocean Conservancy said it was most likely a baleen whale and that the decomposing gases inside the whale caused it to blow into an unwhale-like shape. Usually when whales die they sink to the bottom of the ocean, but it was concluded that this one must have died with a bacterial infection that made it produce more gas, or it died in warm water which allowed more bacteria to gather than normal. Why do I sound like a scientist or a doctor in all my videos? I'm not qualified to speak like this. Either way, this thing looks like the furthest thing from a whale, so this is just false advertisement. And finally at number 1 is Untitled. Honestly I really didn't know what to call this one, so I decided to just keep it mysterious. This creature was seen in footage taken by 2 boys exploring a wooded area at night. Now I don't know where exactly they were, but the video starts with them walking through this place in the dark and hearing very weird animal sounds from a distance. And the sounds just weren't of an animal you'd heard before, they were screeches almost, or like something was choking. It honestly sounded like a possessed animal, in complete honesty, I'm not gonna lie. When the boys finally get near to where the sound is coming from, the thing changes its sound and it becomes more of a hiss at the boys, but not a cat hiss, like a human hiss. The guys make a run for it but turn back to see the creature coming after them. Now the thing itself is a very scrawny, pale, human looking thing if anything, and I want to say it was a human. It was bipedal and had 2 arms and was coming after them trying to get them with its arms, but it just wasn't really moving like a human. Maybe it was a very disturbed or deranged person living in the middle of the woods in a cave, I have no idea, but I would piss myself if I ran into that in a dark alley. Or a light alley for that matter, it really doesn't matter.
Starting us off at number 10, we have Kazaam, otherwise known as Shaquille O'Neal. For any of you who have seen that movie, man oh man, I rewatched it recently and I do not think it holds up. But if there are Kazaam fans watching, please let me know what you think down in the comments. Anyway, back to Shaq. Shaquille O'Neal was born March 6, 1972, and little did his mother know, she would be giving birth to one of the most famous basketball players of all time, as well as a modern giant. Shaq clocks in at 7 feet 1 inch, which is 2.16 meters in height, and has quite the list of hilarious pictures comparing his size to other popular celebrities. One of my favorites is a picture of him with A-list comedian Kevin Hart. We all know Kevin is a shorter guy, but next to Shaq, he looks like a tiny villager. Luckily for Kevin, Shaq is just one large friendly giant unless he's on the court. Shaq no longer plays basketball, but is now a sports analyst on NBA-related TV shows, and even though nowadays he's usually seen just sitting at a desk, this man is still a giant.
Number 9, Giuseppe Tartini. Everybody wants to be the best at something, but for Tartini, the best just wasn't good enough. Tartini was born on April 8th, 1692, and the guy might as well have been born with a violin in his hand. He was brilliant, a brilliant musician and composer, and he thought so too, until one day he heard someone playing the instrument he dedicated his life to with a kind of expertise that he had never heard. This sent him spiraling, and for 12 days, Tartini locked himself away practicing all hours of the day. While he drove himself mad, the devil decided to pay a visit to a desperate soul in a dream. He offered to make Tartini the most masterful violinist in the world in exchange for his soul. Like the wise guy he was, he asked for a demonstration, so the devil picked up the instrument and played a sonata with ease and beauty like nothing he'd ever heard before. When Giuseppe awoke, he scrambled to write down the sonata, which has become easily one of his most popular pieces of work. Its name? The Devil's Trill, and I listened to it and it is beautiful. For his entire career though, Tartini remained frustrated with the piece as he was never able to play it exactly as he had heard it. This story is a reminder to never make a deal with the devil, as you never really get what you asked for.
At number 8, we're going back to the NBA with a basketball superstar, Yao Ming. This famous NBA superstar was born September 12, 1980 in Shanghai, China. Yao Ming's height is an incredible 7 feet 6 inches or 229 centimeters. This giant featherless being has a wingspan of 226 centimeters, which is basically just as tall as he is, and his feet are size 18. Those aren't shoes, those are frickin' water skis. Before coming to play for the NBA, he played for the Shanghai Sharks in the Chinese Basketball Association, and was then drafted to the NBA in 2002 to the Houston Rockets, where he there played until 2011. In February of 2017, Ming was elected as the chairman of the Chinese Basketball Association. Now, there is also a documentary titled The Year of Yao, filmed during his rookie year with the Rockets, as well as a book he co-wrote with NBA analyst Rick Butcher titled Yao, A Life in Two Worlds. So if you want to get to know him a little bit more, check those out. If you want to see how this giant dominated the court, I'm sure you can find tons of old Rocket games all over the internet. At number 7, staying in China but going back to the 1840s, we have Chang Yu Sing. Sing grew up to be 7 feet 9 inches tall, which is 236 centimeters, and was appointed as a member of the emperor's court. Later on in his life, he left China for England on what was only supposed to be a brief visit, but that brief visit ended up turning out to be a 2-year stay. During his stay in England, many people would stop him and pay 3 shillings just to see him. Later on, taking advantage of the extra cash, he went on tour through the rest of Europe and was shown off alongside another little person just like Haining Bates. He later also joined P.T. Barnum's circus and was also known to have many female admirers. By the sounds of it though, none of them lasted because I could not find any info on whether he was actually ever married. Maybe he just liked the bachelor life too much. I get it. Anyway, Chang Yu Sing later passed away in 1893, and his funeral was only attended by 50 of his closest friends due to his own wishes. His coffin was 8 feet 5 inches long, that's 260 centimeters, and I don't want to imagine what it was like being one of those pallbearers. If I was one of them, I probably would have let him down. At number 6, we have Patrick Cotter O'Brien. Patrick was born in Kinsale, Ireland on January 19, 1760. He grew up to be 8 feet 1 inch tall, which is 244 centimeters, and he was the first of 13 known people to grow past 244 centimeters. At the age of 18, he worked as a bricklayer. Needless to say, unlike the rest of his bricklaying colleagues, he did not need a ladder to reach the top of the cottages that they were working on. After he had enough of bricklaying, just like the most of the other giants on my list, he went into show business, where he later went just by the name of O'Brien. He traveled around in a specially made carriage, and apparently he was once stopped by a highwayman, who, when seeing the giant O'Brien inside, immediately ran away with his tail between his legs. His massive weight took quite the toll on his body, which brought him to his death on September 8, 1806 at the age of 46. I'm sure his weight caused him many troubles and struggles, but I bet it wasn't easy for the horses pulling him in the carriage either. That being said, the more horses, the easier it is to pull a 8 foot tall giant. That's the old saying, right? Coming in at our halfway point at number 5, we have another Canadian, Joseph Edward Beaupre. Joseph was born in Willowbunch, Saskatchewan on January 9, 1881. His parents were what was considered average height, and honestly so was he until the age of 3, and he started growing like crazy. By the age of 9, he outgrew his own parents and he was 6.5 feet tall. At the age of 17, he was so big that it is reported that he lifted an 800-pound horse. I don't know if that's true or not, but if it is, then that means he was not only tall, this guy was yoked too. He reached his full giant potential at the age of 23 at 8 feet 3 inches. That's 251 centimeters. He had to wear giant custom-made shoes that were size 22. If Yao Ming's shoes are water skis, then these are freaking snowboards for each foot. He had dreams of becoming a cowboy, but gave up because his feet would still touch the ground while atop his bucking bronco. He later joined a circus as well as hoping to capitalize on his size, but it took its toll on him, especially because he suffered from tuberculosis. He sadly died on July 3rd at the age of 23. Now, this story gets pretty sad. After his death, the circus refused to help his father pay for the burial, so his body stayed with the undertakers, who then started displaying his corpse in store windows and museums. In 1907, his corpse was found in an old circus hangar and was then given to Montreal University, where it is mummified and stored. In 1970, Ovilla Lesperance, descendant of Joseph, requested her relatives relative's body back, but was at first denied because the university didn't want his body stolen and put up for display again. Finally, Ovilla got her relative's body back and Joseph was cremated in September of 1989, 85 years after his death. Even though his circus employers and maybe the Montreal University people are now deceased, I still have one thing to say to you. Screw you guys. At number 4, we have Arthur Cayley. Arthur Cayley was born in Sulby, Isle of Man in 1824 and was considered a normal-sized human being until his late teens when he started growing much taller. Maybe it was an after effect of puberty. He reached 7 feet 11 inches tall, which equals to 241 centimeters. He weighed over 392 pounds, which is 178 kilograms. His size earned him the name Manx Giant, and he was known to be a bit more wide than his other giant friends as well. He was frequently seen in exhibits in Manchester, London, and Paris before suddenly and mysteriously disappearing. His mother reported that he was dead, but many doubted this because his life had been insured for £2,000 only a few weeks prior. They believe it was a case of insurance fraud, and that a tree was actually buried in his place. Sure enough, Cayley was not actually dead. He traveled also to join P.T. Barnum's circus, and he was known as Colonel Ruth Goshen, the Arabian Giant. His former life as the Manx Giant stayed a well-kept secret until his death in 1889. At number 3, we have Angus MacAskill. Angus was born on the island of Burnay in Scotland back in 1825. The Guinness World Record books recognize him as the tallest true giant to have ever lived because his height was not caused by any kind of growth abnormality. Funnily enough, he was so small at birth that doctors didn't believe that he would survive. Now, Angus only grew to 7 feet 9 inches or 236 centimeters, which may not seem like much after a few of our friends on the list here, but trust me when I say this guy was still absolutely massive. He had the biggest chest ever, coming in at 203 centimeters or 80 inches around. He weighed in at 500 pounds. That's 227 kilograms in case you wanted to know. Oh, and by the way, he could lift a 2,800 pound ship's anchor. He was also known to carry a 100 pound weight, which is 45 kilograms, for 10 minutes using only 2 fingers. Angus often received requests from people wanting to wrestle him. If those challengers didn't have the same size as Angus, they most certainly had guts. He then of course later joined the circus and toured through Cuba and the East Indies until going to Europe and North America. After retiring from the circus, he went into real estate and opened up his own store. Sadly, in 1863, he died from brain fever. Can you imagine rolling up to a house and seeing this guy out front? The outside is perfect and beautiful, but I don't know a damn clue what it looks like on the inside. Can you let me know? At number 2, we have Bernard Coyne, aka Bernard the Giant. Original name, huh? Bernard was born in Anthon, Iowa on July 27, 1897. His actual height is cause for dispute because some report him being 8 foot 2 inches, while others say he was 8 foot 4 inches, while even more people saying that he was 8 feet 8 inches. No matter what though, he was over 8 feet, which is over 240 centimeters tall. He was so tall that he was actually rejected by the army, probably because they could see him coming from miles away and that they were too scared that his rations would need to be 3 times the size of anyone else's. Unlike most other giant people whose height is a result of abnormalities in the pituitary gland, Bernard's height was from the unicoidal infantile gigantism, a very rare syndrome. His parents would put him on display for extra money when he was younger, but later decided against it because they didn't want to be on the receiving end of the wrath of God. Good idea, jerks. Bernard preferred a quiet life and turned down countless offers to go on exhibit ever again. His shoes were a size 24, which means they're considered something, I don't know, bigger than a snowboard, and he weighed in at 300 pounds, which is 136 kilograms. He sadly passed away at the age of 23. Man, being put on display for a couple of extra bucks by your parents. Too bad child services were not around yet. And finally, coming in at our number 1 spot, if you ever visited Clifton Hill on the Canadian side of Niagara Falls, you'll know this guy. Robert Wadlow. Robert was born on February 22nd, 1918 at a normal size. However, he quickly started growing at the age of 5 and he was already wearing clothes intended for teenagers. At age 8, he was taller than his 5 foot 11 inch father and could even carry him up the stairs. He then joined the Boy Scouts at age 13 and had to have his own uniform, tent, and sleeping bag specially made for him. In 1936, he joined the Ringling Brothers Circus as a curiosity. He had a huge appetite and ate around 8,000 calories a day. In case you're wondering, the average human eats 2,000 to 2,400 calories a day. Damn, that guy can eat. He unfortunately suffered from some leg issues and had to wear leg braces and also often use a cane, but nevertheless, he kept growing. Sadly, one day, one leg brace was fitted improperly and ended up causing him a huge blister on his ankle, which then became infected. Tragically, the infection killed him at the age of 22 on July 15th, 1940. He was last measured June 27th, 1940 at 8 feet 11 inches, which is 272 centimeters. He was a true giant, and not only was he actually missed, but so is his Niagara Falls statue at the Guinness Book of Records Museum. I remember countless trips where I actually measured myself up against him, and that was a lot of fun. Miss you, Robbie.